That sound. Every engineer knows it. It cuts right through everything. The steady hum of the machinery, the quiet of the watch, your own thoughts. And in that first second, what you do next, well, that defines everything.
And that single insight is really the core of what we're talking about today. We're breaking down a masterclass in crisis management by Chief Engineer Daniel G. Telioka, which was recently published on chiefengineerlog.com. We're going to focus on those critical first few minutes.
You know, there's a particular quality to that sound at 3 a.m. It's not just a noise, it's a physical shock. One moment, you've got the steady rhythm of the plant, and the next, a flashing red light and a jolt that goes right through the deck plates. Especially if you're in a force 8 gale, it just changes the entire atmosphere in the ECR.
And the instinct, right? That adrenaline hit tells you to move, to rush the panel, to start pushing buttons. But that is the most dangerous moment. A seasoned engineer knows that the very first action is to control yourself, not the plant. To just pause.
Okay, let's dig into that, because it sounds so simple, but it is physically difficult. For a junior engineer, standing completely still for 10 seconds while an alarm is screaming feels fundamentally wrong. Every fiber of your being is telling you to act. So why is not acting the most productive thing you can possibly do?
Because those 10 seconds, that's what allows your brain to shift from a primal fight or flight reaction to a professional, analytical response. A reaction is chaotic. You might shut the wrong valve or completely misinterpret a whole cascade of faults. A response is controlled. This is the kind of frontline wisdom Daniel shares regularly on chiefengineerlog.com. It's not in the manuals, but it absolutely saves ships.
So you've taken that pause. You've let that initial shot of adrenaline pass. What's next? The immediate priority isn't actually to look at the specific fault just yet, is it? Exactly. Before you hunt for the problem, you confirm the status of the patient. And the single most important question a veteran engineer asks is this: is the ship still alive? It's a macro-level assessment, not a granular one. And that means checking these vital signs immediately. Is the shaft still turning? Are the generators holding, or are we about to slip into a blackout? Are any temperatures or pressures in a critical state? Do you see any smoke? This check determines if you have a problem that needs investigation or a full-blown crisis that requires an immediate shutdown. And let me tell you, confusing the two is catastrophic.
So once you know the patient is stable, you have to face the chaos on the panel itself. You can have a dozen alarms light up in 5 seconds. You don't try to cut through that noise, you look for the ghost. You go straight to the alarm log and find the first out. One single event, let's say a drop in fuel pressure, can trigger 10 secondary alarms. A novice chases the symptoms, the professional finds the source, and that is the difference between real troubleshooting and just guesswork.
Let's apply this to a real-world scenario. This is one that every engineer has seen, or, believe me, will see: a low lube oil pressure alarm on the main engine, middle of a night watch. The rushed reaction? Stop the engine immediately. But doing that could leave the ship dead in the water in a busy traffic lane. The methodical response is to first ask, is this sensor telling me the truth? You walk over and check the local pressure gauge. You look at the pressure trend on the monitor. You confirm the standby pump has actually started. 9 times out of 10, it's just a faulty transmitter. A 5-second check prevents a major operational hazard. Right, and while all of this is happening, another clock is ticking. You know that within 60 seconds, that bridge phone is going to ring, and on the other end is an anxious captain who feels the ship suddenly drifting. How do you manage that external pressure? With information and authority, a weak response like, "I don't know what's happening," that just sends panic straight up to the bridge. A professional response controls the entire situation. We have a pressure deviation, the plant is stable, I will update you in 3 minutes. That simple statement buys you critical time to think, it builds confidence, and it stops panic from spreading. Communication is a tool of control. So when you put all of these pieces together, the pause, the stability check, identifying the source, confirming the data, and communicating professionally, you have a framework. And it's what separates chaos from control in those first 5 minutes. It's a really powerful process when you see it laid out like this. First, you pause. You just breathe. Then, you stabilize the ship's vitals. That means power and steering. Third, you identify that single initiating alarm. Fourth, you confirm it with a physical check. And only then do you act. This framework basically codifies the hard-won instinct of an experienced chief engineer into a process that anyone can follow under pressure. And that's the ultimate point, really. The first 5 minutes are a psychological test, not just a technical one.
The best engineers aren't necessarily the ones who know every single system inside and out. They're the ones who can stay calm and think clearly when the pressure is on. You're managing yourself just as much as you're managing the machinery.
Look, this is a discipline that's built over years, but the principles are clear. To get a practical tool you can use, we absolutely recommend you visit chiefengineerlog.com. You can download a poster of this first 5 minutes emergency framework. Put it on the ECR bulkhead. It could make all the difference.